The Boast. The Council of Apex Species met only once every galactic cycle, and when they did, the stars themselves seemed to hold their breath. Within the shimmering dome of the neutral station Garvectal, floating in high orbit over the gas giant Varnak 4, the deadliest beings in the galaxy gathered, not to wage war, but to compare who had survived the most hostile conditions evolution could offer. Each of them hailed from a Class 4 death world. Worlds so violent, so unforgiving, that most species would perish within minutes of atmospheric exposure. On their own planets, they had clawed their way to dominance, adapting to poisons, tectonic fury, and gravity that crushed bones. They were proud of it, and even prouder of the ancient competition known as the Varrock Proving, a multi-species trial of survival, cunning, and strength. This cycle, however, was different. "I say we include a primitive species," hissed General Skarnoth of the Zarnathi, a towering reptilian creature with volcanic cracked scales and a voice like smoldering coal. "To make it interesting." "You mean prey." The word dripped with disdain from Velas, the Ulvic hive mind, whose frozen planet spun so fast it created constant blizzards and 40G storms. "They won't last a trial." "Precisely." Skarnotha's mouth split open in a grin. "But think of the spectacle." A dozen eyes turned toward the council center, where a projection of a small blue and green planet hovered mid-air. Earth. Isolated. Uncontacted. Still in its atomic age. A murmur of amusement passed through the chamber. Class 3 designation, barely interplanetary, noted Qatari, the Threxian war philosopher whose species bathed in gamma radiation and used asteroid strikes as seasonal markers. "Why bother?" "They're resilient," said a quiet voice. It was Jana, a Gallery spore mind. Her body was a translucent sac drifting in her hover suit, pulses of bioluminescent thought flickering through her jelly-like form. The Gallery communicated psychically and fed on radiation and emotional energy. Among the most ancient species, they rarely spoke aloud. "You've sensed them?" asked Skarnoth, narrowing his slitted eyes. "I touched the surface of one of their transmissions." Documentary. About an apex predator. The creature is called a honey badger. Her glow dimmed slightly. "It does not care." The room went silent. "A non-sapient, I assume?" Velas asked, unsure. "No. Merely one of many. The humans revere it, but are not afraid of it." A silence, then laughter, deep, echoing, thunderous. "Oh, this will be glorious," Skarnoth roared. "Let them enter the proving. Let us witness how long they last." A consensus formed quickly. Across the galaxies, trillions would tune in to watch what was sure to be a comical tragedy. The humans would be contacted, briefed, and allowed to send one representative to the games. One, to represent their entire species. One, to stumble into the arena and be annihilated before the first challenge even ended. "Yes," Qatari said, nodding slowly. "Let the primitives try." In a quiet control room deep within the station, a young Zarnathi technician watched the decision with barely contained concern. "Humans," he muttered to himself, scrolling through intercepted Earth transmissions. War footage, documentaries, sports, something called Jackass. He watched a bipedal mammal launch himself off a roof in a shopping cart, laughing through broken ribs. He blinked. Wait. He tapped a few buttons. The feed switched to something called Antarctica, Winter Over Diaries. He watched in stunned silence as humans voluntarily subjected themselves to sub-zero darkness, isolation, and madness, for science. "Why are they smiling?" he whispered. He pulled up a war archive. The Battle of Stalingrad. No food, no supplies, surrounded, the humans had still fought. Not just survived, but won. His clawed hand trembled slightly as he opened a final file. A montage titled, Florida Man Compilation. By the end of the video, his color had drained to a sickly yellow. He stood and bolted from the room, tail lashing behind him. "They have no idea," he muttered. "They've just invited demons to a gunfight." First contact. Earth looked unassuming from orbit. Blue oceans swirled around green continents, white clouds drifted lazily through the upper atmosphere, and the moon hung nearby like a loyal sentinel. To the alien delegation aboard the cruiser Varkash's Claw, it seemed peaceful. Deceptively so. General Skarnoth of the Zarnathi leaned forward, peering at the planet's biosphere data through the ship's viewport. Oxygen concentration at 21%, the navigator noted. Highly reactive. Fires can spread unchecked. Amateurs, Velos the Ulvic hive mind scoffed, hovering in his graphpod. That's not a threat. That's a design flaw. A low gurgle came from Qatari the Threxian, whose outer hide shimmered with ion radiation. Still, there is a strange symmetry here. It's aesthetically pleasing, in a non-lethal way. The shuttle detached with a hiss of pressure and plunged toward the surface. They had selected a remote region in the southern landmass known as Australia for the first observational contact. The Planetary Council had agreed to send one of their mid-level representatives, a female named Jessica Tran, a field ecologist. Unarmed, confident, smiling. She met them in the bushlands. "Welcome to Earth," she said, brushing a fly off her neck. "Watch out for the ants." Skarnatha's eye ridges twitched. Ants. Bullet ants. Venomous. Very aggressive when you step on their nest. As if on cue, one of Velos's drone extensions shrieked and collapsed. Something had bit it. "Don't worry," Jessica said cheerfully. "That'll wear off in a few hours." Probably. They hadn't even left the landing site before things began to unravel. The group's first encounter with native wildlife came in the form of a kangaroo. Skarnath read the dossier. Herbivore. Bipedal. Non-aggressive. It approached, twitching its ears. Then, without warning, it kicked one of the Ulvic drones through a tree. "It punched him," Qatari cried, scandalized. "Not punched," Jessica said. "Kicked. They've got powerful legs. You should see them fight each other." Moments later, a cassowary emerged from the underbrush. "Oh gods, what is that?" Velos whispered, psychic static crackling through the air. "It's just a bird," Jessica replied. The cassowary screamed. It charged. "It has claws." "Why does it have claws?" The group scattered as the avian juggernaut chased two Zarnathi observers into the forest. Skarnath climbed a tree, until a koala above him hissed and urinated down in defiance. "This world is mad." Velos buzzed, rotating wildly in the air. Jessica shrugged. "You're lucky it's winter." Later, at a ranger station, the delegation was shown footage from the local emergency network. Bushfires that consumed thousands of acres in hours. Floods that carried away entire towns. Dust storms. Cyclones. Spiders the size of dinner plates. One species, the platypus, had venomous spurs and a bill like a bird, yet was classified as a mammal. Skarnath leaned closer to the screen. "This is a real creature." "Yep," Jessica said. "We don't question it anymore." "And you've not only survived here," Qatari murmured, "you've thrived." "Oh, Australia's just one continent," she added. "You should see Siberia. Or Detroit." Qatari turned pale. Back aboard the Varkash's Claw, the Alien Council held an emergency meeting. "This is not a Class 3 death world," Velos seethed, pulsing with neural tension. "Their oceans are full of apex predators, their plants can kill, and they've invented explosives before spaceflight. They poison themselves for fun." Skarnath bellowed. "They drink ethanol and carbonic acid daily. Some willingly jump from high places with only cloth to slow their descent." Qatari added. "They enjoy fear." Jana, the Gullery spore mind, hovered in silently. "Their cultural media promotes conflict, loss, and perseverance. They do not avoid pain. They seek meaning through it." There was a long, troubled pause. "They don't merely survive their death world," she said softly. "They have domesticated it." No one spoke. Then a quiet voice came from the rear of the chamber. "And we invited one of them to compete." Meanwhile, Jessica Tran was back at the ranger station, on a video call with her team leader. "Yes, they've officially invited us to the Galactic Proving Trials," she said, holding up the sleek alien data slate. "I think they expected us to decline." Her superior leaned forward. "Are you accepting?" She smiled. "I've already got someone in mind." The trials. The Varric Proving Grounds orbited a dead star, far from any civilization, surrounded by a radiation belt so lethal even the stations ran on shielded automata. It was the perfect place to test the galaxy's deadliest. The alien champions arrived first. Clad in armor woven from lava spiders, exosuits of crushed neutron crystal, or psychic dampeners that screamed with their own sentience, they stood tall and confident in the glassy black chamber that would soon become a battlefield. Then, the human arrived. She wore no armor, no weapons, just weather-worn boots, utility pants, and a patched-up jacket bearing the faded words, Antarctica Research Division. Her name was Sergeant Maria Singh, former survival instructor, field scientist, and all-around lunatic, according to those who knew her. She adjusted her sunglasses, looked around at the monstrosities gathered, and popped chewing gum into her mouth. "All right," she muttered. "Let's dance." Trial 1. The Jungle Drop. They dropped the competitors into a replicated death jungle harvested from the Zarnathi homeworld. Poisonous air, shifting terrain, acidic rain, and flora that could strangle you in your sleep. Within 30 minutes, one Threxian had fallen into a carnivorous sinkhole. The Ulvic champion refused to leave his gravity bubble and was disqualified. A Zarnathi war beast was last seen running from a species of flying worms that mimicked the voice of its dead hatchmate. Maria. She had a fire going by nightfall. She'd constructed a shelter from a fallen predator's hide and was roasting something that smelled disturbingly like roasted chicken. The watchers in the control chamber stared in silence. "She's eating the wildlife," Katari whispered, horrified. "She's laughing," added Skarnoth. "Why is she laughing?" Trial 2. The Combat Gauntlet. A hexagonal arena. No weapons allowed. One-on-one matches. Maria was paired against a hulking, four-armed Threxian brute that oozed testosterone and radioactive sweat. As the buzzer sounded, the brute lunged. Maria ducked, rolled, and threw a handful of sand into his eyes. The creature roared, swinging blindly. She sidestepped, kicked him behind the knee, and used his momentum to slam him headfirst into a wall. Match over. Knockout. The crowd was silent. Skarnatha's jaw dropped. "She weaponized dirt," Katari muttered. "She fought dirty." "No," Veloz buzzed. "She fought smart." The next round, she faced a Gallery spore mind in a psychic duel. The spores tried to induce hallucinations and confusion. She closed her eyes, smiled, and leaned back. The Gallery pulsed in confusion. Then horror. "She's feeding off it," Jana whispered. "She is already mad." Later, when asked what she saw, Maria shrugged. "Honestly, reminded me of tax season." Trial 3. Endurance. The competitors were subjected to psychological strain, isolation, extreme temperatures, and stress. Sleep deprivation. Internal monologues. Loops of traumatic memory. Skarnoth cracked after 6 hours, demanding a combat challenge instead. Katari meditated and withstood the test, barely. Maria. She fell asleep. When the AI increased the heat, she stripped off her jacket and muttered something about a summer in Arizona. When the system played screams, she snored louder. When they simulated her worst fears, she sat up halfway, said, "Already lived it, thanks," and went back to sleep. At the 24-hour mark, the system flagged her with a warning, subject possibly non-sentient. Emotional response too low to detect. Back in the observation chamber, the council watched in stunned disbelief. "She broke the simulation," Katari said. "She laughed at death," Veloz whispered. "No," Jana corrected. "She ignored it." General Skarnoth stood slowly, a hand resting on the hilt of his ceremonial blade. "Either she is the most dangerous creature here, or she has no survival instinct at all." Jana floated toward the viewing screen, where Maria now drank coffee from a cracked thermos, boots on the table of the post-trial waiting room. "She is human," she said quietly. "They don't survive in spite of madness. They survive with it." After the final scores were tallied, Maria stood alone at the top. First place. Unchallenged. She accepted the medal with a lazy salute and a wink. The council applauded, some with grudging respect, others with thinly veiled terror. As she exited the chamber, Skarnoth stepped forward, towering over her. "You are unlike any creature we have faced." She looked up at him. "We're not that special," she said. "Most humans are worse than me." His eye twitched. She smiled. "Good luck if they ever show up." Diplomatic fallout. After the proving trials, the galactic balance didn't shift, it tilted. Entire civilizations, once proud of their Deathworld origins, now found themselves nervously reviewing Earth's classification. What had been labeled a Class 3 survival probable was rapidly under reconsideration. Some whispered it should be Class 5, caution, existential risk. But the humans weren't demanding territory, nor did they seek power. They smiled. They waved. They asked for directions to the bar. And that made it worse. Inside the high conclave hall, a domed chamber lined with crystallized intelligence arrays, the Apex Species Council met in emergency session. The mood was less celebration and more containment strategy. General Skarnoth slammed a clawed fist on the table. "We cannot let this stand. She humiliated us." "She won," Qatari corrected. "Fairly. She chewed root bark during the toxin trial. It neutralized the effect," hissed Veloz. "How did she know?" "I believe she called it gum. This is a species that uses chemicals recreationally that we consider bioweapons." Jana, who had remained quiet, gently pulsed. "And yet, she never threatened us. She never raised a weapon. She came alone." The others shifted uncomfortably. "She was not a conqueror," Jana continued. "She was a scout." A long silence. Back on Earth, Maria Singh sat in a UN debriefing chamber surrounded by blinking lights, nervous diplomats, and more coffee than anyone should drink in one sitting. "So, what did they want?" asked a man in a gray suit, adjusting his tie like it was strangling him. She stretched and leaned back. "It was a contest. Survival of the fittest. They thought we were cute." "Cute?" She nodded. "Until I drop-kicked a Threxian into a lava pool. Then they got real quiet." Murmurs around the table. A woman from the EU delegation looked up. "Do you think they'll return?" Maria sipped her coffee. "Oh, they'll return. But next time they'll bring more data, more caution, and less arrogance." "Are we safe?" asked someone from the back. She grinned. "Probably not. But it turns out that scares them more than if we were." Meanwhile, across the galaxy, news of the proving spread like radiation in a breached reactor core. Alien think tanks released new reports. Hypotheses were updated. Earth's data files were re-evaluated with sudden seriousness. Creatures, large predators, some armored, some venomous. Others deceptively small but lethal in numbers. A weather, unpredictable. Capable of killing by heat, cold, wind, and water. Occasionally all four in one day. Humans, emotionally erratic. Prone to self-destruction. And yet, adaptable to nearly anything. Worse, they seemed to bond over suffering. They sang through disaster. They laughed at pain. They challenged the universe. And they didn't fear death. They made jokes about it. The Threxian Empire convened a meeting of its war council. "We must prepare," balked a commander. "If even one human arrives on our planet, we lose," another finished quietly. The Zarnathi sent an envoy to Earth under a diplomatic initiative titled Respectful Distance and Mutual Curiosity. Even the Ulvik Hive, notoriously proud and xenophobic, began dispatching drones to study human biology more closely. Not for conquest. For survival. Inside her small flat in Melbourne, Maria checked a mailbox. A sleek black envelope had arrived. The alien seal shimmered faintly. She opened it and found a single line of text. "You are cordially invited to return, for diplomacy this time." She smiled. Then her phone buzzed. A message from Jessica Tran. "They want a delegation. Think you're ready for another round." Maria leaned back, cracked her neck, and typed. "You bring the coffee. I'll bring the crazy." Back at the galactic conclave, Jana floated alone in her meditation chamber, communing with the older layers of the Gallery's collective mind. They do not seek domination, she shared across the ether. They seek understanding. And if they must bleed to achieve it, they will. A moment of pause. "Perhaps they are not the strongest Deathworlders," the collective echoed. "No," Jana agreed. "They are something else entirely. They are the storm that smiles back."